Eli stood quietly in the middle of the alien garden, surrounded by tall blue flowers that glowed under the twin suns of the planet Zalera. The air smelled sweet like fresh rain and warm fruit. It was peaceful, here much more peaceful than Earth. He looked around, amazed again by how different everything was. And yet, it all felt calm, like it had been waiting for him. He had come as part of a peace program between humans and Zellerans. Earth and Zalera had just signed their first trade agreement, and Eli had been chosen to stay for a few months. To learn their culture, he wasn't a soldier, wasn't a high-ranking officer. He was just a translator, trained in languages and simple diplomacy. But the Zellerans liked that. They respected people who listened. Beside him walked Nira, a young Zelleron girl who had been assigned to guide him. She was quick to smile and always asked about human jokes and songs. Her skin shimmered lightly in the sunlight, and her eyes were soft green like ocean waves. Eli, Nira said suddenly, her voice firm but kind, "I want you to marry my mom." Eli stopped walking. "What?" he asked, almost laughing. Nira turned toward him. "Serious. I want you to marry her." "Wait, you're not joking?" Eli asked. "Nira, that's not something people just say on Earth. On Zellera, it is normal," she said. "We choose who we want for our family, and I choose you for my mother." Eli blinked. "Why?" Nira smiled a little. "Because my mom is better trained, much more experienced. She's alone, but she shouldn't be. And you understand things. You ask questions. You make her smile again." "I haven't even met her," Eli said. "You will," Nira said. "I've arranged it." Tonight, Eli wasn't sure what to say. Back on Earth, things like this didn't happen. But this wasn't Earth. Maybe he needed to understand more before saying yes or no. That evening, he wore the simple white robes that Zellerans offered their guests. He followed Nira through a path of silver stones, past quiet pools and glowing trees, until they reached a wide house made of smooth black stone. 2 guards stepped aside to let them enter inside. Eli saw her. Eylar. She stood taller than most humans, with sharp eyes that studied everything calmly. Her hair was pulled back in a warrior's knot, and she wore dark robes marked with medals and lines of honor. She looked like someone who had seen wars and victories and pain. And yet, she was beautiful in a quiet, powerful way. "This is Eli," Nira said. "The human?" Aylery gave a small bow. "Welcome, guest of peace." Eli returned the bow. "Thank you, Commander." They sat in the quiet room. Soft music played in the background, and a breeze moved through open windows. "My daughter has told me much about you," Aylery said after a while. "I hope all of it was good," Eli said with a small smile. "Most of it," she replied, and for the first time, her lips curved slightly. They talked over a meal. Aylery asked questions about Earth, its history, its wars, its rebuilding. She didn't seem impressed by power, but she was curious about how humans had changed over time. Eli shared what he could, avoiding the dark parts. Still, he noticed Aylery watched him not for his words, but how he said them. After dinner, Nira left them alone. Larry walked with Eli to a high balcony that overlooked the glowing forest. "My daughter is bold," she said, voice soft. "She is," Eli agreed. "She asked me to marry you." Aylery turned to him. "I know. Is that normal?" he asked. "It is not strange," she said, "but it is rare. Children on Zalara do not make such a request unless they see something important." I looked out at the stars. "Do you think it's important?" Aylery was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I have seen many men come and go. I have trained soldiers and buried friends. I have known duty longer than love. But when my daughter told me about you, I listened, and now that you've met me..." Aylery didn't smile, but her voice was calm. "I see why she believes." Eli felt something heavy but not unpleasant settle in his chest. He wasn't sure what kind of future was waiting, but for the first time in a long while, he didn't feel lost. "I'm just a translator," he said. "Titles are not who you are," she replied. "I can train warriors. I cannot train someone to care." The stars above flickered gently. I don't know what this means yet, Eli said honestly, but I'd like to find out. Illyri nodded once. That is enough for now. Eli walked back to his quarters. He saw Nira waiting outside the house. So, she asked. Eli gave her a small nod. Your mom is? Something else? Nira grinned. I told you, she's the best. And now, maybe she won't feel alone anymore. We'll see, Eli said. One step at a time, deep down, something had already started changing. The next morning, Eli woke early. Sunlight poured through the crystal windows of his guest room, casting soft blue light across the floor. Zalera always felt like a dream, quiet, strange, and calm. But now, after last night's talk with Illyri, it felt different, heavier, more real. He stepped outside to find Nira already, waiting on the stone bench near the pond. Did you sleep? She asked, smiling. Barely, Eli replied. Your mom's words kept echoing in my head. Nira nodded. She speaks few words, but each one is full. Eli sat beside her. You said she's more experienced? What did you mean? Nira looked toward the trees. My mother has led armies, ended wars, and protected many. But after my father died, she changed. She became quiet, not sad, just distant. You think she needs someone? Eli asked. Not just someone, Nira said. Someone different, someone who listens. Eli didn't answer right away. Deep inside, something told him Nira wasn't just being playful. She was trying to heal her family in her own way. Later that day, Eli was invited back to Illyri's home. This time, there were no guards, only silence. She welcomed him inside without words. He followed her to a quiet study filled with old maps, scrolls, and a glowing table showing battle plans. You've been busy, Eli said, looking around. Eler, I nodded. I've been a strategist for most of my life. Peace came recently, and you're still working. Peace must be protected, she replied. They walked together to a large window overlooking a valley. Illyri folded her arms, standing. Tall, I've read about Earth's wars. Some of your leaders were skilled, others caused harm. We have a mix, Eli said. Some fight for peace. Others fight for power. And you? She asked. Why did you come here? I came to listen, he said, to learn. I thought that's all I would do. But now, things feel more personal. Illyri turned slightly toward him. Nira is young, but she sees clearly. She believes this bond would help me. And do you believe that too? Eli asked. Illyri looked at him carefully. I believe it might help us both. They walked through a garden behind her home. Small lights floated through the air, dancing. Between the branches, it reminded Eli of fireflies back on Earth. You don't seem like someone who needs help, Eli said. Need is not weakness, Illyri replied. Even warriors must rest. Even leaders must feel. They sat beside a shallow pool where tiny glowing fish swam in circles. Nira told me once that you stopped smiling after the war. Eli said softly, Ela. I was silent for a moment. Then she said, I buried many. I carried the names of those who never returned. Smiling felt wrong, but now, he asked. Now, I feel something shift, she said. Not because of your strength, but your quiet. Eli felt warmth rise in his chest. He wasn't strong like the soldiers Illyri once commanded, but maybe that wasn't what she needed. The next few days passed slowly, filled with long talks, shared meals, and silent walks. Illyri showed him old battle records, and Eli shared stories from Earth, some sad, some funny. She laughed once, just a small breath of sound, but it made Eli smile for hours. One night, while watching the stars, Eli asked, if this bond between us happens, what does it mean for you? For your people. Illyri turned to him. Zelleran bonds are not just emotional, they're political, symbolic. If I bond with a human, it shows the world that peace between species is more than words. That sounds like a big step, Eli said. It is, she replied. And not everyone will agree. Do you care? Illyri thought for. A moment I care about doing what is right, not what is easy. Nira visited them less during those days, choosing to give space. Once, she brought a small fruit basket and placed it quietly on the table. Before leaving, she whispered to Eli, "You're doing well." She's softer now. But not everyone was happy. A message came from the Zelaron Council. It was a formal notice requesting a private meeting with Alari. Eli wasn't invited, but he watched her prepare with calm hands and steady eyes. "Do you think they'll stop this?" Eli asked. "They might try," she said, "but they do not rule my heart." That evening, Aliri returned from the council meeting later than expected. Her face was unreadable. Eli stood when she entered. "What did they say?" he asked. "EYLAR." I sat down. "They are afraid of me? It's changed," she said. "They believe this bond may shake the old ways," they warned me. "Are you going to listen?" Alari looked at him, firm. "I've followed orders my whole life, but this choice is mine." They sat together in silence. Then, slowly, Aliri reached out and placed her hand over his. "You still have time to walk away," she said. "This is not an easy path." "I'm not walking," Eli said. "Not anymore." Aliri didn't reply, but the silence between them felt warm, not empty. For the first time in many years, she felt the weight she carried begin to lift, not because someone fought for her, but because someone chose to stand beside her. The sun dipped below the Zelaron horizon, turning the sky into waves of orange and purple. Eli stood outside Ellery's home, feeling the soft wind brush against his face. Though he had spent weeks on Zelera, something had changed inside him. Over the last few days, it wasn't just the alien beauty of the planet or the calm of its cities, it was the feeling of being seen. Truly seen. EYLAR. I had returned from the council meeting the day before, firm in her choice. Eli hadn't expected that. He knew he was just a visitor. He wasn't rich or powerful. He wasn't trained like the great Zelaron leaders. But somehow, she had chosen to walk forward with him anyway. That evening, they sat together under the open sky, near the quiet pond where they often met. The stars above them glittered like silver dust, and the world felt still. "You said the council warned?" "You," Eli said, breaking the silence. "EYLAR." I nodded slowly. "They fear losing control. Fear what this bond means. If a human can be chosen by one of our own leaders, what does that say about their old traditions?" "They think I'll break something," Eli said. "They forget," Alari replied, "that breaking old chains can bring peace." Eli looked down at the water, watching the glowing fish swim lazily. "Do you think I'm ready for this?" Eli was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Readiness does not mean perfection. It means choosing to try, even when afraid." It smiled at that. Over the next few days, news of their connection began to spread. Some Zelerans were curious. Others were hopeful, but a few were angry. Eli heard whispers in the market, noticed how some people avoided looking at him. Still, he walked proudly, not because he felt important, but because he had chosen to stand beside Layler. One morning, he found Nira waiting outside his quarters. She looked serious, unlike her usual playful self. "You should know," she said. "A group inside the council wants to challenge the bond. They're calling it unsafe." Eli sighed. "Because I'm human?" "Yes," she said softly. "And because they still live in fear." He rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm not here to cause problems. You're not the problem," Nira said firmly. "Fear is." She led him to a public gathering hall, where Alari was preparing to speak. It was a large open space, with silver walls and seats shaped like waves. Zelaran citizens were already filling the room. EYLARI stood at the front, calm as always. Her presence alone made people listen. Eli stood off to the side, unsure if he belonged, but then Aliri looked at him just one glance and he knew he had to stay. "My people," Aliri began, her voice clear. "I know some of you question my decision. You wonder why I, a war strategist, would bond with someone from a distant world?" Murmurs rose across the room. "I have served this planet for decades," she continued. "I have fought, bled, and lost. I have known sorrow. Now I choose peace not only with other worlds, but within my own heart." She stepped slightly aside and gestured to Eli. This human does not come with weapons. He brings no army, only words, patience, and questions. And yet, in those things, I have found strength. Eli swallowed hard. The attention was on him now. We do not fear the unknown, Ailery said. We welcome it if it brings harmony. Someone in the crowd stood up. It was an older Zelleran man, wearing council robes. Commander, he said, this bond risks tradition. What if others follow your path and it weakens our values? Ailery looked at him directly. True values do not break, they grow. Adapt. The man sat down, unsure of how to respond. After the gathering, many citizens came forward, some quietly nodding, others simply standing nearby as a sign of support. One woman offered Eli a small flower, a gesture of welcome. Later that night, Lorray returned home. You were brave, he said. You were, she replied. They shared tea under the stars. Lorray felt tired, but not the bad kind of tired. It was the kind that comes after doing something meaningful. What happens now? He asked Eller. I looked at the sky. We wait. The council may still resist, but the people have seen my choice. And you don't regret it? He asked. Eyla. I turned to him, do you? He shook his head. Not even a little. She placed her hand over his again. Then we keep walking forward. As the night deepened, they sat in silence once more. But this time, it was not the silence of strangers. It was the silence of trust, of two different souls learning to walk the same path. For the next few days, everything felt both peaceful and tense. Eli continued walking beside Ailery through the markets, training yards, and gardens. Some people smiled at them now, others still looked away, even though nothing had officially changed. The planet Zalera seemed to be watching one morning. As Eli helped Ailery organize old reports in her command room, a young Zelleran officer entered with hurried steps. He bowed and handed her a sealed message. Ailery read it, her face calm but firm. They've called an inquiry, she said. What does that mean? Eli asked. It means the council wants to question my judgment in front of the High Chamber. They wish to make their doubt public. Because of me, Eli said, feeling a mix of guilt and frustration. Ailery looked at him. Because of change. You only remind them of how unprepared they are for it. That night, Eli walked alone through the garden near the diplomatic quarters. The glowing trees hummed softly, but his heart felt heavy. He never wanted to bring trouble to anyone, especially not to someone like Ailery, who had already carried so much weight. He found Nira sitting near the edge of a small pond, tossing stones into the water. They called the inquiry, Eli said. No, she replied quietly. Your mother could lose everything if they rule against her. I know that too, she said, standing up. But do you think she's afraid? Eli shook his head. No, then don't be afraid either. Nira said, this isn't just about rules, it's about hearts. And hearts aren't controlled by council votes. Her words stayed in his mind. The next day the High Chamber was filled. Glowing pillars stood tall around the circle of leaders, and voices echoed softly inside the glass walls. Eli stood beside Ailery as she faced the council members. Commander Ailery, one counselor began, you have served Zalera with honor. But now we ask, do you truly believe this bond with a human is the correct path? Ailery answered calmly. I do. This bond is not based on impulse. It is based on understanding, balance, and purpose. Another counselor spoke. But this human has no military training, no record of leadership, no standing in our system. And yet, Ailery said, he has listened more than most warriors ever have. He has respected our ways without bending his own. He has earned more in silence than others have in speeches. Eli stood still, heart pounding. And what do you see in this bond? Asked the High Chancellor. I see hope, Ailery said. I see the future. A future not ruled by strength but guided by trust. The room fell silent. Eyes turned to Eli. The High Chancellor finally spoke. And what does the human say? Eli stepped forward. His voice was quiet but clear. I never came to Zalara to be anything special, he said. I came to learn, to understand. But in doing that, I met someone who saw past my name, my rank, and my species. He looked at Illyri. She is more experienced, yes, wiser, stronger. But what she gave me was not just her time, it was her trust, and I want to honor that. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then, a younger council member stood. Commander Illyri, he said, if this bond is approved, are you willing to give up your command? The question hit hard. Eli looked at Illyri, waiting. She didn't flinch. Yes, she said. If that is the price of peace, I accept it. There was a quiet shock across the room. But know this, she continued, I will not stop serving. Zalara, I will just serve it differently. The council ended the session with no clear answer. The decision would take days. Later, back at home, Eli watched Illyri pour tea slowly into 2 cups. Her face was calm, as always, but he could see the quiet battle behind her eyes. You were ready to give it all up, he said. Titles are only words, she replied. But some bonds are worth more than any uniform. What if they say, no? Illyri looked at him. Then we walk our path anyway, Eli smiled. You're braver than anyone I've met. No, she said. I'm just tired of fear. They sat quietly, sipping tea under the silver sky. The stars above seemed closer that night, like they were listening. A few days later, a messenger arrived again, this time with final words. From the council, Laller. I read the message slowly, then passed it to Eli. The decision was made. They won't support it publicly, she said. But they will not stop it either, or they will not stand in our way. Eli took a breath. We're free to choose? Yes, she said, looking into his eyes. And I choose this. As the suns rose above Zalara the next morning, a quiet ceremony was held in the garden behind Illyri's home. There were no trumpets, no speeches, only close friends, a few trusted voices, and one bond shared in stillness. Nia smiled as she watched her mother take Eli's hand. She whispered to herself, I told him she was better trained. And this time, Illyri smiled too. The garden was quiet after the bond ceremony. The silver leaves of the trees rustled softly, and the wind carried the scent of sweet fruits and glowing flowers. The moment felt peaceful, almost like time had slowed down just to give space to what had just happened. Eli stood beside Illyri, her hand still gently holding his. He wasn't used to being part of anything so important. Back on Earth, he had lived a simple life, learning, teaching, translating. But now he was bonded to a Zelaron commander, someone deeply respected on this planet. And somehow she had chosen him. You still seem surprised, Illyri said, watching him with calm eyes. I am, Eli admitted. I didn't think it would actually happen. Zelarans don't waste time with empty words, she said. When we choose, we mean it. Nira stepped forward with a wide smile. You both look like a team now, not just a people one force. Illyri nodded, placing a hand on her daughter's shoulder. You saw this before even I did. Nira grinned. I told you, my mom's strong. But even she needs someone to remind her to feel again. As guests began leaving, Illyri and Eli stayed behind in the garden. Small floating lights danced above, their heads as evening settled in. You've given up your command now, Eli said. How do you feel? Lighter, she said, but not lost. Leadership is not tied to titles. It lives in our choices. Do you think the council will stay quiet? He asked. For now, she replied, but we should be prepared. Others may still resist change. And she was right. The very next day, a message arrived from another part of the planet, an old military division that had once served under Alir. Their new leader, Commander Thorak, had sent a message filled with strong words and sharp warnings. He believes our bond weakens Zalara, Larry explained after reading it. He wants me to prove that I still belong in the leadership circle or step away from all influence. How does one prove something like that? Eli asked. Through the ritual of unity, she replied. Eli blinked. What's that? It's a test, she said. 2 bonded partners must work together in front of witnesses. The test is meant to show balance, communication, and purpose. So we have to pass a test to prove we're not just pretending. Eli asked. Exactly, she said. What happens if we fail? And some may try to undo the bond, at least politically. Eli sighed and nodded. Then we better win. They trained together for the next few days, not with weapons or armor, but with puzzles, coordination drills, and mental exercises. Ailery guided Eli gently, showing patience even when he struggled. Your mind moves quickly, she said one day, but your hands hesitate. I'm used to words, not action. He said, then we make action speak like words. She helped him learn the movements of Zelleron rhythm exercises, which were similar to dance but focused on trust between partners. If one moved too quickly, the other had to adjust. If one stumbled, the other caught them by the end of the fourth day. Eli could finally keep up without missing a step. On the day of the ritual, the testing arena was filled. High-ranking Zellerons, citizens, and even off-world guests came to watch. The platform in the center glowed softly, showing that it was ready. Commander Thorax stood near the back, arms crossed, expression cold. Eli and Illyri stepped into the center together. A voice from above rang out, clear and sharp. You may begin. The test began with coordination tasks. Glowing spheres appeared in the air, and Eli and Illyri had to touch them in order without speaking. They had to read each other's body movements and react as one. The first round ended well. Then came the puzzle phase. Different symbols floated before them, and they had to place them in the right pattern. But they weren't allowed to use their hands, only voice and body motion. Ailery took the lead with calm instructions, and Eli followed. He wasn't fast, but he was steady. The final task was rhythm balance, matching steps while blindfolded, walking in a circle while holding only a thin glowing thread between them. The moment the blindfolds came on, Lee panicked slightly, but he felt Ailery's gentle pull on the thread and focused. One step, pause, another step. Ailery moved with slow grace, and Eli followed, trusting her rhythm. He imagined her breathing, remembered her calm voice, and let that guide him. When the final tone rang out, they stopped. Silence filled the arena, then applause. Soft at first, then louder. The voice above spoke again. They passed. Commander Thorax stood up but didn't speak. He gave a small nod and turned away. Illyri looked at Eli. You didn't hesitate. I trusted you, he said. And that is more powerful than any sword, she replied. They walked out of the arena together, hand in hand, and the crowd parted for them. Nira ran toward them, eyes shining. You were perfect. We were balanced, Eli said, smiling. That night, as the stars shone down on Zellara, Eli sat with Illyri under the sky, their hands still linked. You could have chosen anyone, he said. I chose the one who makes me feel like myself again, she said quietly. Not a leader, not a warrior, just ... me. Eli looked at her with full respect and quiet joy. And I'm still just a translator. And now, she whispered, my partner. Weeks passed after the Unity ritual. Peace returned to Ailery's home, and for the first time in many years, her life felt full again. She no longer wore her military robe every morning. She didn't need to. She wasn't a commander anymore, but she had become something more important. A partner. A mother. A symbol. Eli had changed too. It arrived on Zellara as a visitor. Now he was more than that. Everywhere he went, people greeted him with quiet nods or soft smiles. Many still did not understand the bond, but they had come to respect it. Even those who doubted could no longer deny what they saw, a deep connection that held firm through pressure. One morning, while Eli helped Illyri prepare a small herb garden outside their home, a message came. It was marked with the seal of the Outer Worlds Delegation, EYLA. Ri opened it. Her eyes moved over the words slowly. What is it? Eli asked. An invitation, she said. From the United Planets Summit? What kind of invitation? They want us to represent Zellara as the first bonded pair between two species. They believe it will show the galaxy that peaceful unity is real. Eli stood up straighter. Do they understand what that means? Ailery nodded. It means we step out from our home and face the galaxy together. Eli thought for a moment. Are you ready for that? I've faced warships and political games, she said calmly, but facing them with you, I do not fear. They packed their things and left 2 days later on a quiet transport ship. Nira stayed behind, promising to watch the house. 4. They left. She hugged her mother tightly. You're stronger now than you've ever been, she said, and I'm proud. You made this happen, Ellie replied. Never forget that. The summit was held on a neutral planet called Velen. The city was massive, filled with species from every corner of the galaxy. The buildings reached into the sky like silver towers. Strange birds flew between the balconies. Eli walked beside Ilari as they entered the central hall. All eyes turned toward them, some curious, some unsure, others hopeful. They were led to a platform where representatives from dozens of worlds waited. The summit leader, a tall alien with glowing skin, stood and raised a hand. Welcome, honored guests, the leader said. Today, we witness something rare. A bond not of treaties or deals, but of trust between hearts. Ilari stepped forward first. She spoke in clear words, not hiding her accent. We are from different worlds, but we found peace in listening. We found strength in walking beside each other. Then Eli spoke. We didn't plan this. It happened. Through honesty, respect, and time. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs more. Of less rushing, more understanding. There was silence. And then soft applause. After the speech, other leaders came to speak with them. Some asked careful questions. Others brought gifts or offered thanks. One older leader from a distant planet said, You've done more with one quiet bond than we've done with 10 years of meetings. But not everyone was pleased. During a private dinner the next evening, they were approached by a delegation from a planet known for its strict laws. Your bond challenges our traditions, said one of their envoys. You speak of peace, but what happens when your two worlds disagree? Eli replied. Then we speak. We listen. We don't raise weapons. We raise questions. The envoy frowned. Such hope is rare. Maybe Eli said. But rare. Things can still be real. After the summit, the news spread fast. Planets began opening small talks with species they once feared. Even the Zelleran Council, once so doubtful, released a message of support. Back on Zellera, Nira watched the broadcast. From their home, she smiled to herself and whispered, They did it. When Eli and Ilari returned, they were met with cheers. People gathered near the landing pad, waving colored lights and singing quiet songs of welcome. A new message had been painted across the garden wall. Unity is not weakness. It is power shaped by patience. Ilari looked at the words and felt something deep inside her shift, not just peace, but healing. As night fell, Eli and Ilari sat together once more beneath the glowing trees. Do you think this will last? Eli asked. Peace never lasts by itself, Ilari replied. Must be chosen again and again, and will we keep choosing it? She looked at him, yes. Together they sat quietly, hand in hand. The stars above them were the same. Stars that had once watched wars and losses. But tonight, they watched something else. Not a battle, not a treaty, but a bond. A quiet, steady bond that had grown from one girl's simple request to something far greater than anyone could have imagined.